sermon series on losing the weight of. And today I'm talking about losing the weight of negative thinking. Rejoice in the Lord always. Again, I say rejoice. Charles Wesley wrote a wonderful hymn titled, Rejoice, the Lord is King. Now, Charles Wesley didn't use this passage of Philippians as his text for that hymn, but he could have. Charles Wesley encourages us to lift up your heart, lift up your voice. Rejoice again, I say, rejoice. The word gospel literally means good news. The good news is the news of the coming of the kingdom of God, the end of Jesus' death on the cross and Jesus' resurrection. The good news is we're restored in our relationship with God. For Christians, no amount of negative thinking can undo the good news of the gospel. I have a question for you. Are you a glass half full or a glass half empty person? People with a positive attitude are said to be people who see the glass as half full. However, as many of you know, I am an engineer. An engineer sees a half-filled glass as being twice as large as needed for the purpose. I'll let you think about that for a minute. Negative thinking is everywhere we go. Every day we will run into someone who will tell us everything is wrong. I heard about a woman who was at her hairdresser's getting her hairstyle for a trip to Rome with her husband. She mentioned the trip to the hairdresser, who responded, "Rome, why would anybody want to go there? It's crowded, it's dirty, there's crime everywhere. You're crazy to go to Rome." Where are you staying in Rome? And she said, "Well, we'll be at this exclusive little place on Rome's Tiber River called the Test." Hairdresser said, "Don't go any further. I know that place. Everybody thinks it's going to be something special and exclusive, but it's not. It's just a dump." "Well, we're going to the Vatican and maybe we'll get to see the Pope." "That's rich," laughed the hairdresser. "You and me and other people. He'll look the size of an ant. Boy, good luck on this lousy trip of yours. You really need it." So a month later, the woman goes back to the hairdresser after she's taken her trip to Rome to get her hair done. And the hairdresser remembered and asked her about her trip to Rome, and she says, "Well, it was wonderful. They just finished a $5 million renovation on the hotel, and now it is the toast of the whole city. It was great." "Well," muttered the hairdresser, "I guess you didn't get to see the Pope." The lady said, "Well, actually, as we were touring the Vatican, a Swiss guard tapped me on the shoulder and explained that the Pope likes to meet some of the visitors, and would I be so kind as to step into a private room and the Pope would personally greet us." Sure enough, 5 minutes later, the Pope walks in, and I take his hand and I knelt down on the floor, and the Pope whispered a few words to me. "Oh, really?" asked the hairdresser. "What did he say?" He said, "Where did you get that lousy haircut?" The poet Jack Gilbert wrote this: "We must risk delight. We cannot do without pleasure. We can do without pleasure, but not delight, not enjoyment. We must have the stubbornness to accept our gladness in the ruthless furnace of this world." I really like the way Jack Gilbert said that. We've got to accept gladness in the ruthless furnace of this world. And we know how ruthless the world can be. Natural events, so-called acts of God, like hurricanes, tornadoes, and earthquakes, are unfeeling and impartial dealers of pain. Jesus tells us that God makes the sun rise on the evil and on the good, and sends rain on the just and on the unjust. Nature happens to us whether you are good or whether you're evil. It's not your fault that Shreveport flooded or that hurricanes arrived at the Gulf Coast. So lose the negative thinking and learn to accept gladness. The great preacher Charles Spurgeon said, "Holy joy will oil the wheels of your life's machinery. Holy joy will strengthen you for your daily labor. Holy joy will beautify you and give you influence over the lives of others." So this morning I'm going to give you some steps to take to lose the weight of negative thinking. These are ways to let the holy joy oil the wheels of your life. First, stop trying to control the future. The future does not exist. There's no point in space that's labeled the future. It simply does not exist. If you are like me, then perhaps you've planned an event and you've imagined all sorts of outcomes. You might have said to yourself, or you might have said to others, this is not going to be good. This is really messed up. You will be much happier if you can learn to work without attachment to outcomes. For example, in some churches, the ministry is all about numbers. And this is true in our Louisiana conference. Now, it's not our bishop's intention to focus just on numbers, but that's how we measure ministry. We measure the number of members, we measure church attendance, we ask how much money is raised. I wonder personally if what it would be like to simply preach the gospel, build community, and serve the poor with our eyes on God and the people before us rather than on the results of our actions.
Amen.
I can wonder that, but it's not likely to happen. So is this attitude synonymous with not caring? It is not. Let me tell you, I deeply care about my work. I spend many hours researching and writing sermons. Ministry is definitely a job. I do have control over the content of my sermons, but I can never be attached to how you hear my sermons. Each of you is a special and unique gift from God, and my words will resonate with each of you in a different way. There's a saying from the Sufi tradition that goes like this: trust God and untie your camel. Absolutely do your best effort. Do your best and then let it go. What happens next is out of your control. Trust God and tie your camel. Some of you may remember I told you that it's important to pay attention when Jesus asked a question. Jesus asked his followers, and why do you worry about clothing? Consider the lilies of the field, how they grow. They neither toil nor spin, yet even Solomon in all of his glory was not clothed like one of these. But if God clothes the grass of the field, which is alive today and tomorrow is thrown into the fire, will he not much more clothe you, you of little faith? If you want to lose the weight of negative thinking, then let go of your need to control the future. Just simply let God be God. Second, let go of the past. I invite you this morning to practice forgiveness. If there's someone that you need to forgive, or if you need to forgive yourself, then do that this morning. Forgiveness keeps us from being stuck in the past, and it helps us find a way beyond the prison of bitterness. When we forgive, we let go of our emotional attachment to what has happened, but we do not forget or excuse the wrong that was done or the pain that it caused. Forgiving another person has no predictable outcome. It does not always lead to reconciliation, nor does it ever make a difference in the other person's life. What it can do is to transform the person who found the courage to forgive. Let me say this again. The point of forgiveness is to transform your life. Reverend Rick Warren from the Purpose-Driven Life wrote, "We are all products of our past, but we don't have to be prisoners of it." So this morning, don't be a prisoner of your past. Third, stop comparing yourself to others. And I'm talking to myself here because I do this way too many times. In my past life, I taught Disciple Bible Study. And one of the exercises in Disciple 1 requires students to write the 10 Commandments as positive statements instead of as do not statements. The 10th commandment from Exodus chapter 20 says, "You shall not covet your neighbor's house. You shall not covet your neighbor's wife or his male or female servant, his ox or donkey, or anything else that belongs to your neighbor." So how would you state that as a positive commandment? You shall not covet. Well, the best answer I ever received in class is this: be grateful for what you have. Sometimes we slip into the trap of comparing ourselves to others, and we might start to think, what am I doing in this group? I'm not smart enough. I'm not fast enough, strong enough, or whatever quality you think might be lacking in your life. Negative thinking creeps in. The devil says, "Craig, you ain't good enough." And then I remember, I am never going to be good enough. Jesus said, "It is not the healthy who need a doctor, but the sick. I have not come to call the righteous, but sinners." I am a sinner, and I need Jesus in my life. None of us are ever going to be good enough for God's grace. But praise the Lord, God's grace comes to us. So stop comparing yourself to others. Lose the weight of negative thinking and be grateful for what you have. Fourth, create a place in your life for affirmations. This is a true story. I was having lunch with a group of ministers, and we were with Bishop Harvey. Bishop Harvey was telling us that sometimes people say things to her that are unkind. People do get angry and they question her judgment and her fairness about issues that are special to them. Bishop Harvey then told us that she has an affirmations drawer. The drawer is filled with thank you cards and notes of encouragement she has received during her ministry. Bishop Harvey reaches into the drawer after someone criticizes her leadership. The affirmations drawer reminds her that she is loved and supported. I leaned in toward the bishop and said, "Bishop, I have that drawer also. I keep every thank you note and every card that's sent. Occasionally I will reach in and pull out several and read them again. These simple cards remind me of why I am in the ministry." So if you want to lose the weight of negative thinking, then create a place in your life for affirmations. Fifth, become a critical thinker and not a critic. An opportunity for improvement is not always criticism. The Apostle Paul tells us to be not conformed to this world, but transformed by the renewing of your minds, so that you may discern what is the will of God, what is good, acceptable, and perfect. This morning I'm going to tell you something about quantum mechanics. That way you can go home today and tell your neighbors. At church today, the minister talked about quantum mechanics. Complementarity is both a theoretical and an experimental result of quantum mechanics. So what is complementarity? Let me say it this way. In life, the opposite of truth is usually a lie, but not so in quantum mechanics. In quantum mechanics, the opposite of a profound truth is sometimes another profound truth. So would you like an example? Light is both a particle and a wave. But in physics, light cannot be a particle and a wave at the same time. Both definitions are true, but they cannot exist together. So if you want to lose the weight of negative thinking, then become a critical thinker and not a critic. So here are the tools I suggested to help you lose the weight of negative thinking this morning. Let go of your need to control the future. Let go of the past. Stop comparing yourself to others. Create a place for affirmations and become a critical thinker. Anyone can be a critic. What I'm saying this morning is rejoice in the Lord always. Again, I say rejoice. Let your gentleness be known to everyone. Let us pray.